Hello, authors, book lovers, and storytellers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Reader's Magnet featured author interview, where we dive deep into the world of creativity and inspiration. And once again, this is me, Rob Lambeth, and I'm your host for today. And our guest for today is the author of the book, Shining Art on Light, Colorful Insight. So please help me welcome the one and only Jim Dakin. So, Jim, how are we doing today?
Oh, I'm doing just great, and I've been looking forward to this, Rob. We had a good time last time.
Yeah, so again, to all of our viewers, though, as you had noticed, though, we had a previous conversation here during the Festival of Storytellers. I highly suggest for you guys to check it out. It was an in-depth discussion, though, talking more about the book itself, and this is really a lovely book. But now, since we're done talking about the book before, and I just want to talk more about, we can try to dig deeper onto some stories as well within your book. But Jim, first and foremost, to all of our viewers and to those who are just tuning in, can you please give us a quick introduction of who is the Jim Dakin?
Okay, Jim Dakin. I'm retired. I'm approaching 80 years old. I had a career first in academia, and then at age 30, I had my midlife crisis and went to work for GE, where I lived happily ever after for quite a few years, maybe 36 years, something like that. And throughout my entire life, from being in grade elementary school through the present, light has been a constant preoccupation with me. And that's all I need to say at this point.
Love that, love it. And you know what, Jim, because again, I told you that I really love the book, though, and also the idea behind the book. But just want to ask you, can you tell us on what was your journey, how was your journey as being a writer then?
Okay, we're going to go in that different order then. Okay, so I have always enjoyed writing from very early in school, even elementary school, junior high school, term papers, that sort of thing. In college, I love doing term papers, and I have one here. I wrote this paper 60 years ago. It's about Newton and science and religion, and I still remember the thrill of writing that paper and finding the references for it. When I was working for GE, I had the privilege to be able to write internal reports, of course, but then I also was able to write scholarly papers, for the external peer-reviewed journals. And here's one that I'm particularly proud of. I wrote maybe 50 or 100 of these, depending on how you count. And soon after I retired, not too long after I retired, I got it into my head. I'd enjoyed writing so much. I got it into my head to write a memoir. And here it is, Life and Light, a memoir.
Oh, yeah.
This book was never offered for purchase. I printed a couple hundred copies for extended family and friends. And it's basically it's about me, but it's also about my extended family and genealogy and stuff like that. And we have a whole lot of stuff in our house that I wanted to condense and make sure it never got lost. And that's what led to this. I had a retiree friend who had worked in the publishing industry, and he gave me some really helpful advice as I was writing this, especially about the structure of it and about the importance of those first couple pages to get the reader's attention and so forth. My wife is a great editor, and she helped me with editing. And I have a brother-in-law who worked as an editor through much of his career, and he helped me also. This was a fun project, but it sort of got my juices flowing.
Okay.
And about the time I finished this, my juices were flowing so much that I published this book, Wrestling with Light.
There.
It was published by the American Institute of Physics in their Perspectives series. And it tells the story of light, but it's mostly focused on an audience that has some familiarity with science and math and that sort of stuff. It does have equations. It's got some graphs that are important, a lot of very scholarly references and so forth. So it's a little bit on the scholarly side, but not superly scholarly. And this is a great book, by the way.
Okay, hey, awesome. Can people purchase that book by any chance?
Well, you could purchase it. It's kind of expensive, which is one of the issues for the general reader. However, if you go on the web, you can read the first chapter, the introduction, for free, and
Oh,
online, and it's a great introduction. Great introduction. I advise anyone to read the introduction to this one for free.
oh, love that, love that. Yeah,
And
and you continue. You were saying?
okay, so that kind of brought me to the present, but
Hmm.
we really need to talk about what makes a good story.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I just want to ask you because again, we're all going through that path though, talking more about your book here. But yeah, so you as being a writer, so what really makes a good story then?
Well, that's a very, very important question. And the answer, it depends. And
Okay.
I'm going to zero in on nonfiction, which is where my entire life has been. I've never tried to write fiction. I don't think I could write fiction. I don't think I
Hmm.
could do local color, for instance. But in nonfiction, you absolutely have to figure out who your target audience is. And
Okay.
in this book that we're going to talk about, I claim that the target audience is the curious of all ages from age 12 to 112. This one here has no equations, no graphs in it. It's easy for someone that's intimidated by STEM to
Hmm.
read this book. Target audience, it has to be engaging. You have to have
Hmm.
some kind of a new perspective. You can't write the same nonfiction book that someone else wrote. Um, and this one here, I claim, has a broader perspective on life than any other book that I know of.
Hmm.
Um, it's not very deep, but it's very broad. And then, of course, if you're doing nonfiction, you sure better have a table of contents. You
Okay.
better have, some footnotes as you go along. You better have an index at the back.
True.
You better have some references. The references tell the reader how to find more if the reader wants to know more. It also
Hmm.
gives you some credibility. The index is really important because in nonfiction, a reader oftenly wants to go back to a book and find a particular micro subject in the book, and you can't just sort of
Hmm.
read all the way through it again. Completely different situation than fiction.
Hmm. Okay. So coming back with the whole thing, because again, talking more about your latest book though, and your journey as a writer here, and well, so what was the initial spark or idea that led to your creation then?
Well, as I was writing this,
Okay.
as I was dealing with all of those equations and graphs and references and so forth, I suddenly had a spark that I could also tell the same basic storyline using art
Hmm.
instead of equations and graphs and things. And art is much more widely understandable than equations and graphs, for instance. I wanted to make this sort of content more accessible.
Okay.
And that's what led me to this. And the key thing was that it turns out that there are many art museums now that have wonderful collections of art that are available to use free of charge, free of copyright infringement, and so forth. So
Hmm.
that became an incredibly important resource for writing this book here. And I even came up with the title of this book and its basic concept as I was writing this book. Um, but then I hit a little bit of a roadblock that we can talk about maybe in a little bit.
Hmm.
But that was the spark, the idea that you could use art to tell the story instead of equations and graphs and things.
Hmm. Okay. And talking more about the book again, talking more about how is this created though, and I'm just wanted to ask you the way it comes with this, Jim. Are you a meticulous planner, or do you prefer to let the story evolve as you write it? Then.
Well, I just asked my wife that question. I'm
Okay.
I'm absolutely a meticulous writer, a planner, and I don't understand how you could be a nonfiction writer without being a meticulous planner. You just
Okay.
can't
Makes
let it
sense.
flow like when you're writing a horror story or something. Um,
Hmm.
and in my case, I start off with an outline. And as I was writing this, I was actually working on the outline for this. And I hit
Hmm.
sort of a roadblock because somehow the outline that I had didn't work for me.
Hmm.
when I parked the project for a year or two while I did something else. By the way, the something else that I did was
Mhm.
I taught a course on this same general content to an honors seminar at Appalachian State in North Carolina. And that helped me to understand that there are a lot of students who aren't STEM students who really don't like equations and graphs, but would love this kind of approach.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
as I was finishing that up, I came up with a completely different way of doing the outline that made a whole lot more sense to me. I basically have three categories. In very, very simple terms, I introduce the science of light, some key concepts, and then I talk about natural phenomena involving light. And then finally, I talk about human inventions involving light. That's the basic
Mhm.
outline. And then once I had that outline, the question was finding the art. So I had let's say, 10 to a dozen museums that I was working with. And for each one of these little subjects on my in my outline, I would go through all those museums and try to find the best piece of art that I could that would address that particular little subject. I mean, an example was the sun.
Okay.
Uh, that's one of the first natural phenomena is the sun. And it turns out not many artists could paint pictures of the sun, but it turns out a lot of people worship the sun.
Mhm.
So I found a piece of a statue. It was a religious statue from India of the sun god.
Hmm.
So it went on and on like that, and I tried very hard. In fact, I was very successful at getting many different kinds of art from many different places in the world. In fact, every continent I have represented, and also all the different eras in history. So it's a very widely, when you say art to some people, they suddenly think, aha, he means Italian Renaissance art.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I'm talking about all art from the way back when people were doing cave art to the present.
Hmm. Okay. So, and
So,
yeah,
well, and
continue.
then once I had
You're saying.
let me just continue here a little bit. Once I had the
Sure.
art, then I had to write some words around the art. And I wanted to keep it short, so I don't have too many words. I wanted to make it easy to read and keep the
Okay.
focus on the art. And then I made adjustments. Like I have an artist granddaughter who visited, and I had her look at my draft. I said, Tess, what am I missing? And she said she came up with two things I was missing. So I put those in, two more
Okay.
subjects.
Okay. And talking more about Jim, because you know what's really wonderful about this though is again, it's the idea and the approach that you're doing comes with this topic as well. And you told us earlier that there were a couple of students who really appreciated the type of approach that you had when it comes with your book. So I just want to ask you, like, what kind of reader actions do you really find the most gratifying or even yet surprising?
Well, to be honest, I have a sentence in my introduction here. Let me read this
Hmm.
sentence to you.
Go.
Artists had a visceral understanding of the properties of light long before science was able to codify those properties.
Hmm.
So, in other words, artists understood art viscerally without even understanding the science or thinking about the science. And there's plenty of examples of that in the book. And what I've found since thing has been out for half a year or so is I've gotten a lot of feedback from artists, unsolicited feedback,
Okay.
artists that love the book because helps them feel appreciated for this gift that they have of making things come alive on the canvas or whatever.
Hmm. You know,
And I don't.
and
Can I
but
show you
sure.
Can I show you an example of that?
Sure, I love
Uh,
that. Okay, go for it. Just show me an example. I would really love because I was about to ask because I noticed that you had some papers stuck on the book. Like if there's gonna be something you want to show us, so yeah, show it to
okay,
us.
here's one of my favorite
Mm.
paintings in the book. This is
Oh,
called Samson and Delilah. It's
okay.
by Gerrit van Honthorst. He was a Dutch painter about 400 years ago. And I'm trying to
Cool.
eliminate the. This is based on a biblical story.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of science in this picture. The for starters, what's the light
Mm-hmm.
source there? It's a candle. The
Okay.
candles can only make reds and yellows. They can't make greens and blues because the flame. There's some science for you, and this artist understood that. And look at how incredibly well the shadowing and so forth works
Mm-hmm.
in this picture. The candle is what we call a point source, and things that are close by the candle, like Delilah's face, for instance, where it faces the candle, is very bright in the picture, but the back of her head is shadowed, and you see that going on throughout this picture. Incredibly perceptive on the part of the artist to get this shadowing right. Um, and you can take, if you took an optics course at the university, you'd learn some
Okay.
equations about that. But the artist didn't need those equations. He just understood the shadowing and the light source and so forth. The light source makes only red and yellow. It doesn't make any blue and green. And that
Mm-hmm.
means that it doesn't interrupt Samson's sleep. But what
Okay.
Delilah's doing there is she's cutting off Samson's hair because she had learned that his hair was the source of his strength.
True.
And she was able to cut it off while he was sleeping. And because this candle
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have any blues and greens, it doesn't interrupt Samson's body from making melatonin, which would which helps him to sleep. Um, and then there are pigments there. Look at her dress. Her dress is red. That red comes from pigments, special substances that they mix in with the cloth to give the cloth that red color. This painting here by Gerrit van Honthorst has more science in it than you can imagine. And he wasn't even thinking about it. He just sort of knew all this stuff intuitively.
And you, I do love it. And it's
Okay,
because
so
because I was thinking about something that when it comes with the painting as well. It's like people just have the understanding of it. And again, I do love the painting though. It really depicts things and there is science in between it. Inside it that people really don't see on surface level. But yeah, continue with what you were saying, Jim.
what
On
I
the
was
book.
going to say is,
Yeah.
unsolicited, I've gotten a huge amount of feedback from artists
Okay.
I didn't even know that love the book because of the credit that it gives to their gift and the
Mhm.
way that their gift can tell this story.
Love that. Love that. I really love that. And you know what? I'm talking more about this book and talking more about the paintings. And again, all of the advice that I've been given to you from artists as well. And again, it really is wonderful because talking more about artists who give you this unsolicited, again, this reactions and these comments coming from these artists who know art so well as well. And knowing that you are appreciating art and depicting it in a different nature is just
Mhm.
something that a lot of artists would really love to appreciate. And you know what, to all of our viewers though and book lovers, I would really highly suggest for you to get a copy of Jim's book. Again, that is Shining Art on Light, Colorful Insights, available on Amazon and Barnes& Noble. And you know what, just to make it much more easier on your end, guys, we'll be adding the Amazon link on the comment section down below. All you got to do is just click on that link, purchase a book, grab a copy right now. And while you're on it, also try to check again, what is the title of the other book that was Wrestle with Light? Am I correct, Jim?
Wrestling with light. You'll notice all my
Wrestling.
books have light in the title.
Wrestling with Light. Check that out, though. Okay, if ever you want to see the first chapter, check it out, see what it is, and if you love it, add it to your collection and have a Jim library in your shelves today. So again, you know what, Jim? I just want to say this though, as we come with today's interview. Just want to say this. Thank you very much for joining us. And again, I really do love the inspiration and also the aspirations that you had and the ideas on how you can deliver such a difficult topic and bring it to a much more lighter sense. Well, pun intended, to a lighter sense for people to understand and get the gist of this. I just want to say this. Thank you very much for joining us today, and it was a wonder having this conversation with you again, Jim. Really
And
loved
Rob, thank you for this interview and giving me this opportunity to get pumped up about my book again. Thank you.
it. Love that, love that. Okay, so once again, guys, again, feel free to grab a copy. It's available through Amazon. And once again, though, to all of our viewers, Thank you very much for tuning in. Always remember that every ending is just a new beginning in the world of stories. May your reading adventures be endless and your imagination boundless. And as we say here at Readers Magnet, we share your stories with the world. Thank you and have a good one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.